Yeah, now it's working. So welcome everyone to The Floor is Yours, number 4. This is June 2024. If you're new here, if this is your first session with us, welcome. A lot of people have joined in the last week. Every week we have workshops, events, etc. in the PPC Hub, and this is one of the formats that I personally like the most. It's called The Floor is Yours, and we let members of the PPC Hub, if they are interested, present something. So if you are interested in presenting something in the future, let me know. We have had, Niklas is actually his second presentation. That's awesome. We've had Volkan do one, Bernd, Ruben, Violetta, Rod, and I might be missing one person, but I think that's it. And today we have another case study by Niklas, as you can see on the screen, a huge case study for how we scaled a lead gen account. So with that said, please everyone mute yourself. Niklas is going to do an awesome presentation, and then afterwards, feel free to ask any questions. Maybe raise your hand, and then we can unmute. And that's it. So Niklas, floor is yours, man. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Miles, and also thanks so much, Bob, for having me second time. It's a huge honor, although it feels strange to say because it's so friendly atmosphere. But still, yeah, I brought a case. It's like our biggest case study so far. As you can see in the title, as Bob already said, it might seem like a clickbaity title, but I hope I can deliver on that. This is my biggest Google Ads coup yet, scaling a lead gen account 20x. What this exactly means, 28K ad spend per month to, that was actually in April 2024, 553K per month, so in 1.5 years. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. So what we will cover in this case study is basically 5 points. So what kind of account is it? Then what was the initial situation when we took over? What were the first things we implemented? Because I think the transition from having the client manage the account themselves and then doing like your first experiments, taking the first hands on it is always a critical phase. And then what was our further roadmap? And of course, what are the results? Although I spoiled them already a little bit. For all of you that don't know me yet, this is a little bit of a backstory about me and about Radyant. So basically, I started as a freelancer in 2013. I just built WordPress websites, basically. So I graduated from high school in 2013 and was earning a little bit on the side. And then clients asked me how they can get more traffic to their website because they felt like, hey, the website is cool, but it's not getting enough traffic. And that's when I stumbled into Google Ads and SEO. And I hired the first employee and went on this agency track in 2019 and grew the agency to 10 permanent employees in 2024, which is now. We were awarded, although I know that these awards are maybe not what they used to be, but still I'm happy for it. Google Premier Partner 2024. So we are in the top 3% of agencies in Germany. And in the last 365 days, we managed around 8 million advertising budget. I'm not the biggest fan of this budget bragging, but I feel like just it gives a perspective of that we have a lot of accounts that we can look into and that we have like a certain perspective on what's working, what's not working. So don't mean to brag here, just like for transparency purposes. Really important information. So we were thinking about that in the beginning. So I cannot share the name of the company due to confidentiality reasons, also because I think probably most of you know it. If a client has the feeling of, hey, we have a hidden secret here, we don't want to share it, we don't want our competitors to copy, etc. Although, of course, with Google Ad Transparency Center, etc., you can, of course, find a lot of information about every competitor out there. But still, what I can say is that it's a startup providing local services in, like, let's say, real estate. I had to put this a little bit wider, nationwide in Germany. But this is as much as I can share. But before we dive right into, I think what's important is to look at the actual things that we did, not who we did it for, because it's more interesting to look at the experiments, look at the tactics, look at the strategies, despite just always saying, hey, it was, I don't know, Nike, or it was this big company or that big company. And I think this is also like, it's a better fit for the PPC Hub and for you guys. So without further like pre-talk, this is basically, so I I combined this screenshot with the ad spend in September 2022 when we started. This was the first month, or no, it was the month before we started when we took over, and then April 2024. You can see the development of the ad spend, so it's quite a steep curve. And to pull something off like that, you have to have a good partner in crime. And for me, it's my colleague Marius. He's head of SEA at Radyant. And actually, without him, this case study wouldn't be possible, because if you're working on such a big account, and already when we took over, I mean, the ad spend wasn't small. There's also always a lot of pressure involved. There were also, of course, a lot of moments when maybe a test, an experiment, a strategy didn't work out as expected immediately, but still, if you have a good partner or if you have a good community, of course, it's always a big help. So I think I can also speak to Marius that having a sparring partner where you can just challenge an idea, even though you might think it's the best idea you've ever had, if you have another perspective, it gives you a better idea. And this is also something why I think, I mean, you're all in already, but why, for example, the PPC Hub is so valuable, because you have like what I had with Marius and Marius has with me, like on a much higher scale, like with so many smart people, and like you get answers to really complicated questions. And I have some examples of that also in the presentation. Like immediately, it's so quick, and I'm always astonished about the combined knowledge that is like in the PPC Hub. So that to this topic for the moment. Since I know that some of you guys might have a short schedule and might want to get to the nitty-gritty immediately, I compiled this. Too long didn't read our journey, and I basically built it into 3 pillars. So the first pillar, like let's say the foundation, were like basically four things. There might be other aspects in details, but in core, when creating a solid foundation in this account, we did these 4 things. First, we consolidated existing campaigns, because there were a lot of like data silos between. You might already know that fragmenting campaigns too much harms your performance, because the individual campaign doesn't have enough conversion data to effectively optimize with smart bidding. Then the second was, and this was like in September 2022, so consent mode was already around a certain time, not consent mode version 2, but still we optimized the web conversion tracking. So without spoilering here, the client used GA4 import, and we switched to Google Ads conversion tracking, which is something that I, at least until today, still recommend to do. We implemented enhanced conversions, so basically sending email address and sending phone encrypted back to Google Ads, which is especially if you have cross-device conversions, which makes a lot of sense, because how should the cookie travel between the smartphone and the desktop? It can't, but the email address, if a user has a Google account, stays the same and is like the matching parameter. Then consent mode, of course, so that we are also able to actually get more conversions on that. Google has unfortunately removed the diagnosis, or at least I haven't seen it in any of our accounts again, about the impact on the conversions by consent mode. So basically, how much more conversions do you get? Okay, Bob, you feel the same as me. But for this client, actually, I think it was 24% increase. So it was huge. And just if you think about, it's not like as it was with Meta back in the day, where you had modeled conversions and it was like the ROAS was a double as it actually was. But I think Google did quite a good job actually with modeling, because it just closed the gap more towards the actual conversions that happened. I still really recommend for every lead gen advertiser that you have access to the actual whatever CRM, landing page, form builder, whatever you use, that you can actually see the amount of leads, not only the conversions in the account, because it becomes more and more important over time to actually understand how much leads do we have on each day, like that the client also receives. But still, this was really helpful optimizing web conversion tracking. Then, of course, integrating offline conversion tracking. So basically sending back signals about qualified leads and about deals from the CRM to Google Ads. And then also, I just kept this at one point, optimizing every aspect of the ads. So there's a lot to it, like how to optimize the copy of your search ads, how to effectively test responsive search ads, what assets, or back in the day, they were called extensions to use, etc., etc. But this was also, of course, an important aspect in that account. Then the next building block were, as I call them, high impact tests for quantity and quality. So one of the tests was actually broad match. So I also have like a detailed analysis of that with me. This turned out to be a really big driver of quantity while maintaining quality. Then optimizing based on qualified leads, that turned out to be a big driver of quality while like sacrificing a little bit on the quantity of the leads, but still keeping more revenue in the end. Then building the landing pages ourselves sounds easy, but was a big lever actually. And tightly connected to that is the local search strategy. This was what I presented in the in my first appearance of The Floor is Yours. I also have like a link to it today. And if you are interested in local lead gen, I highly recommend you to rewatch this session. And the last building block was scaling beyond search, where I will highlight discovery. It was called Discovery back then when we started it, and demand gen, and then also PMAX, but this was actually added relatively late, but still. Too long didn't read. These are our things. I just noted that somebody already left, so for this guy, I think it was quite right. For everybody else, let's dive into the details. So this is actually what the account looked like when we took over. So we had 10 campaigns running, and it was completely search only. What you might already notice is that 5 of them, so it's actually 30-day time frame, September 1st, September 30th, 2022. 5 of these campaigns have less than 10 conversions per month. This was something that stood out for us because we felt like, okay, there's too much fragmentation, yeah, and it's a case definitely for consolidation. Then something that I was really astonished about, because actually there was a campaign with 460-ish conversions, that all campaigns were still running on maximized clicks. And sometimes I feel like when you're really deep into all the topics, you sometimes feel like, hey, a campaign or like the advertising can only work if all the nitty-gritty technical details are perfectly configured. But I felt in this particular case, it was a demonstration of a superior offer for a high market demand than if you have maximized clicks, or even if they might have gone with manual CPC or whatever. At least if you don't fuck up completely, it will work and it will attract clients. This actually reconfigured my mindset about this a little bit, because in this particular case, the offer, the product market fit, the demand basically trumped the technical details, so to say, in the account. Of course, we were still happy though that we had a lot of levers that we can work on, because we obviously saw the potential. Leads were tracked through GA4 import. I already spoiled that a little bit. But yeah, actually, this was something where we felt like this is not optimal. Also because we just wanted to have the foundation for offline conversion tracking and for all of that. and this is why this was a big topic. And a problem we faced when we did the initial audit, some leads were double tracked. So although the numbers look quite good, some leads were double tracked, where you had like a lead generated through a form, and then after the form, the people were able to instantly book a Calendly event. So it was not necessary, but it was like, hey, thanks for your submission. We will get back to you, but if you want, you can already schedule your consultation appointment, whatever. And this was a problem because it's basically like it's one step further in the lead journey, and we just wanted to have like clear data and not one lead. So because the event and the form submission is basically the same lead, but having it double tracked meant what was worse for us in the optimization. Then when we dug a little deeper, we actually uncovered that they were using no assets. So no assets at all. They didn't use side links. They didn't use structured snippets, callouts, images. I think they were already available back then, not in beta. So this was quite astonishing to me, but still, yeah, they had quite good click-through rates. Of course, the click-through rate was probably pretty good because they were using maximize clicks. So Google was going for like cheaper clicks, and then also delivered a good click-through rate. But still, it was a little bit strange for me to see. Then also looking at the keywords, they were only using exact match keywords. So there was one, and I wanted to be precise here, one broad match keyword that took 30 cents in September. But yeah, actually it was everything exact match, so not even using phrase match. This I think I found quite well, like fortunate, because I always see accounts that have like significantly less conversions, but are already using broad match. Then they are claiming about a bad lead quality. And then if you look into the search term report, hopefully you can see a lot of search terms still. You uncover things that might convert into a lead, but it's not qualified at all. So this is something that in this case was, I think a good starting point for them at least. So what we then did is we consolidated the campaigns. So we basically turned 10 campaigns into 4 campaigns. And in the first 3 months of our cooperation, so basically until the end of December 2022, we doubled the budget. So we spent twice, and we saw the cost per lead rising by 42%. And you might think that this is not a good result, and this is not what you suspected the consolidation to actually turn out. But let me pull the curtain here for you. OCT is the actual keyword, and OCT stands for offline conversion tracking. And as a side note, this image was generated with ChatGPT and DALL-E, and I want to encourage you to use AI more in your daily workflows if you haven't, because I searched for a picture like that. I couldn't find one. I just created this like 2-sentence prompt, and I think the picture is quite nice. But actually, since we integrated offline conversion tracking and were able to not only track the leads, but also the deals, and we later also added qualified leads, we were able to, let's say, look one level deeper than just the website leads and just the cost per lead of the website leads. And before we look into actual deal values and everything, I just wanted to give you like 4 cents here that you should consider. So if you look at that, and since I know that when looking at the screenshot and looking at the ROAS and you compare and you ask, how can the ROAS work out, blah, blah, blah. The first transaction here does not represent the total customer lifetime value. This is just, I think, an important thing to note. In this particular case, the client wants to get as much market share as quickly as possible, because if they acquire a client once, the chances are really, really, really high that they can do business with this client 2 times more, 3 times more, 4 times more, because the service can be used multiple times. Actually, it could be used probably 10 or 20 times, although this is not the average, but still. So if we look at the ROAS, they don't need a ROAS of 5 or 7, and they're still happy, and that's why they were able to spend 20x. And there are business models, as in this particular case, where the customer sticks for quite a while. Why am I giving this to you also? If you think about lead gen, but also, of course, about e-commerce, always try to engage with the client in a discussion where you not only look at the number of leads, the cost per lead, but also if a lead is qualified, how much business will you do with it? Can you only sell something once, twice, 3 times? And just if you have this data and if you try to think about it more and maybe create really simple calculations like, okay, if we acquire a client and you sell something once, what would the ROAS be that you need? Or if you work with POAS, of course, also what POAS do you want to have? And if you can sell something again in 3 months or 6 months, what should the ROAS then be? And how much are you willing in quotes to sacrifice like your initial transaction ROAS to drive long-term customer lifetime value? So this is just something where some clients might say, hey, no, I want to be profitable in first order, blah, blah, blah. And it's fine. But I think it just deepens the conversation about the actual business model and all of that. And you also you demonstrate that you understand business a lot more than just metrics in an ads account. And I think this is something that in line with becoming a Miles and Bob always call it T-shaped Google Ads specialist. It's really important to actually get to the business fundamentals more and engage more also in conversations with the client about it. But without talking about this further, the idea for us, why we felt like 42% increase in CPL is totally fine, is that we just shifted the budget to the campaign that generated the most deal value. And you can see it here, like the top level campaign. If you look at the CPLs, like those, I've never used this feature before. Those 3 campaigns at the bottom here, the CPL is far below the average because this campaign here drives a significantly higher CPL. But if you look at the total deal value, like we have 150k euros here with 34,000 ad spend. So the ROAS is very, very good, and we have the majority of deals here. And this is just because here we had like the most service-related keywords. These were like the banger keywords, and we just pushed this more. And like it seems so stupid simple now, but just imagine if you don't have this column or those 2 columns. If you don't have it, like if you don't use offline conversion tracking, and I see this so often, like for us, like I don't know everybody here in the audience how advanced you are in this particular sense, but if you understand offline conversion tracking, then it seems simple stupid for you. But if you haven't understand it, then you sometimes feel like, yeah, but it's so technical, and why do I even need it? And yeah, but blah, 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 for the algorithm, how much of an impact is it exactly? I always say, hey, whatever the impact for the algorithm is, it just gives you more transparency to drive better decisions on how to scale the campaigns, where to allocate the budgets, what to scale and what to descale. So this is basically something that I felt like in this scaling journey was one of the first key milestones where we said, hey, we can drive better decisions because of this advanced feature that they implemented. And we can give a better recommendation to the client that we weren't able to give if we haven't done it. Yes. So then the next part, and I'm giving a little bit of a chronological overview of how we moved, and you can always see it in the screenshots of the time frame here. So this, for example, is January. No, it's June. Sorry, it's June 2023. The next big step for us was starting discovery, actually, which is now called demand gen, because we wanted to address users further up the funnel. And I see a lot of people struggling with demand gen. And I see a lot of people where demand gen is really killing it. And I think, like, of course, what you always have to keep in mind is that you are addressing users, whatever the audience you're using, with a push component. So they are not actually searching in this very moment for the service, but you try to push your service to them as you would do with meta ads or whatever. And for this, you have to like reframe your expectations. But still, if you want to engage with demand gen, I would always recommend to start with a custom segment based on keywords. We were in exchange with the Google Ads support and an engineer there that actually told us how Google uses the keywords in the custom segments. And they basically recommend using 10 to 15 keywords because they interpret these keywords broad match, and 10 to 15 because then they can more easily identify a certain theme, so that you are like clearer on how should the people actually have been searching in the past that you want to address. And then also I recommend, don't start with optimized targeting if you don't have lots of conversions in the account, because we did both. We started now in accounts with a lot of conversions with optimized targeting, worked well. And we started in accounts that didn't have a lot of conversions and it didn't work out at all. In this particular case, we didn't start with optimized targeting, but turned it on then somewhere down the road. And it actually like drove more conversions then and helped us scale the campaigns. But still, I think optimized targeting, use it carefully. And last point, I already like told this pre-starting the slide, expect the leads to close at lower rates, because it's like, I also did this comparison of a client between Meta leads and Google leads. And of course, mostly people searching actively for the service now are more qualified. That's why they are usually more expensive. But in the end, if it makes sense for your business, and in this particular case, it made sense, if you can nurture them mid and long term, for example, if you have any resources that you can give to them, if it makes sense to just be in touch in any way, and maybe have them see you along the way. Maybe not everybody is ready to convert on the first spot, but maybe 2 months later. Then it makes sense to engage in formats like discovery and demand gen, because you can actually like significantly scale your lead base, and also just at least in this case with those budgets, get more out of the market than is possible just with search. The next key moment for us was switching the optimization of a struggling campaign to qualified leads, because it helped us significantly increase deal value and ROAS. So this is a campaign, and you can see this was in August 2023 compared to July. And you can see here I already built this with the comparison. Yes, we spend a little bit more from August to July. And now here again, if you would only look at the leads and if you would only look at the CPL, 11% less leads, almost 40% increase in CPL. If you would just have this data, you would say, what did you do? You fucked up my account. But then if you move further down the funnel, and in this particular case, I really liked it because we used the offline conversion tracking data not only to make like an informed decision, but also to guide the algorithm. And in this particular case, like this is what we call like the conversion from lead to qualified lead. So the qualification rate increased significantly. That's why the cost per qualified lead actually decreased. The amount of deals also, and I mean, like, look at this, 11% less leads, 41% more deals, and 100% more deal value. So 63% ROAS. This is something where I feel like this is like the ideal scenario, and we were really happy about it. And the campaign has since been on optimizing for qualified leads and worked really well. we were considering moving to optimizing for deals, but we were hesitant because sometimes there are fluctuations, and since the delay of deals coming in is sometimes quite long, we stayed with qualified leads for the moment. But this is something where we also got the feedback from the client that this was something they didn't expect it, because they were really feeling some pressure about the leads going becoming less and the CPL increasing. But then when they saw the actual deals and that they got more revenue based on it, and basically 100% more revenue with only spending 23% more, they were really happy, and we were also really happy. And I want to take the moment also to do a second shout out, and this shout out goes to you, Bob, because the test I showed was the one before we asked you about how you do this transition. And every other transition was even smoother, because for everybody that's not so much into the details here, I don't want to make this too complicated, but basically, if you switched the optimization and if you're using a target CPA, in the end, your leads, the target CPA of your leads, is very different to the target CPA or the CPA of your qualified leads, of your deals. So you have to really have a good game plan on how will you go about with the budgets, how will you go about with changing the TCPA, how do you monitor the campaign, what happens if the campaign spends significantly less over the next days, what will you do, and just having someone really competent giving us a little guidance, also at this height that we were already flying with this client, gave me and also gave Marius, I can also speak for him, a lot of confidence on how to move forward and have some sort of a playbook. So definitely shout out to you. And this is also what I meant in the beginning. When you have an even really complicated question in the PPC Hub, you get questions, you get answers so quickly. This also is worth the whole investment, because you just make the right decision at the right time and you don't fuck it up. So yeah. Yes, exactly. So then, let's move on to the next high impact test. So the next high impact test was broad match, and we actually did a clean experiment with broad match. And yeah, don't always do it, but I would definitely recommend to do it, at least if you're at a certain scale, because in the end, you can clearly prove how is it working, and what are the results. And it's also better if, for example, if something goes wrong, you don't have to revert all the changes in the account. You can just say, okay, stop experiment, and not apply the changes. So using experiment in Google Ads, I think really, really cool for this particular case. And here we took one of our campaigns, a well-running campaign, and we basically had around 100K, a little bit more than 100K for the test. And we got really cool results, 17% more conversions at 15% less CPL. And I also posted about this on LinkedIn a couple of months ago. And a lot of questions were about, but how's the quality evolving, etc., and all of that. And so basically, yes, this campaign was still optimizing on website leads, but of course, we tracked qualified leads and deals. So we were able to monitor this really closely. And the qualified leads have also clearly increased. I don't have it on the slide, but I checked the data again. And the ROAS was constant. So basically, we drove more leads at lower CPLs. We got significantly more qualified leads, and we got more revenue in the end. So for us, this was a successful test that we rolled out. And it also proves to me that the new type of broad match can work really well if you have a lot of conversions. And also in this particular case, it might be a little bit small, but Google usually uses the 80% confidence interval. And I'm not a statistics guy, but I know that 95% confidence interval is better than 80%. And this is all I have to know. So basically 95% confidence interval and statistically significant result for both metrics, conversions and cost per conversion, gives me the indication that this was a really good test that we did, and that we were able to still at this level scale the account even more with that. The next high impact test were our own landing pages. And with our own landing pages, we were actually able to also significantly increase the lead quality and the ROAS. And in this particular case, I want to highlight the conversion rate again from lead to qualified lead. So we actually increased that by 8% points. And still here, if you look at, for example, the CPL, so again, and it's a theme that you might get bored of, but if you look at the CPL, like the purple-ish highlighted was our landing page, the new landing page. So the CPL is again higher, but the quality of the leads is better. That's why we got a lot more qualified leads. And of course, if a client gets like 100 shots, then they will also score more. So in the end, more deals, a higher total deal value, and a significantly better ROAS, which for us was really, really cool. So 35% increase in ROAS. And I also don't want to keep our tested practices away from you. So I can't show you the landing pages, but I can show you everything that we did and that led us like along how we built the landing pages and how we optimized them. And basically, at least for us in B2C lead gen cases, heavily optimizing for mobile was super important because the majority of traffic, as I said, B2C lead gen comes from mobile. And I see a shift of mobile first also in B2B more and more. But in B2C, I think it's basically the new standard. And ask yourself, when you are searching for something for you privately, how often do you use your computer and how often do you use your smartphone? And I think you will also notice that smartphone becomes like the number one go-to device for that. And also always double check. So we always tend, since mostly we build landing pages on the desktop, we still tend to have the desktop screen. But actually, you should always use the element inspector or change the window size to check for mobile, or at least always, if you change something on the desktop in the landing page builder or whatever tool, WordPress, Webflow, I don't know, whatever you use, have your smartphone on the side and have the website open there and then refresh and actually check how it's working. Because if something isn't working, like it's stupid things, like the cookie banner over, or like if you have the small cookie banner thing from Cookiebot that stays if you made your choice and it overlays the button or something like that, that just people can't access the button that leads to the form, you will just like, you will bite something if you just notice that when you've sent thousands of euros to the landing page. So this, and also speed, like check to make your sites very, very speedy. So basically, if you use Webflow or if you use WordPress, sorry, I know it's always a struggle how to get the page speed up. That's why I surrendered and said, okay, for clients, we just use dedicated landing page builders that are built on some sort of web app. They use a CDN and whatever, and it's just quick because I just need the result. I need it to be quick. I don't care about, oh, is it the minifying of JS and blah, blah, blah. We just have like in this T-shaped Google Ads specialist thing, you have to always think about, okay, what is still my duty and what's not your duty? And you're not a web developer. So if you have a good understanding of what type of landing page you need, that is like optimized well, you don't have to understand every technical aspect of it. Then next up is leverage sales psychology. This is something that I see like still far too less. So 3 points I want to point out here is loss aversion, urgency, and scarcity. So basically loss aversion. People fear losing something more than they cherish winning something. So it's like it seems stupid, but basically everything you can do to give something give someone the idea of, hey, there's no risk involved, it's all free, blah blah blah. Do all of that so that someone doesn't feel like, oh, I could lose something or it could be a scam or whatever. Then urgency, somehow give them a feeling of you have to be quick. So in this particular case, actually the demand for the service was high. So we just said something like, hey, there's a high demand now for the service. Be quick to check the availability. I always recommend against fake urgency or fake scarcity. Like, okay, there are just so many slots left. But if there is a certain sense of urgency and scarcity, it will surely help your conversion rate. Then make it super easy to convert. For us, it was using a click funnel approach. So basically, like people in Germany probably know this tool Perspective, but basically it's the same with going through Typeform or something like that, where you don't have to type in every detail all at once, but basically you just click the first question. So something about, let's say, do you already advertise on Google? Yes, no. How much is your ad spend? 5K, 10K, whatever. What's your biggest challenge currently? Too few conversions, or price per conversion too high, something like this. So make it easy. And then in the end, you also benefit from the completion bias. So people tend to complete something that they started, and then you have your form, and then you get a better conversion rate. Then also balance lead quantity with, it should read balance lead quantity with quality by the amount of data you ask for. So imagine a form and your client wants to have the name and the email and the telephone and the zip code and the birth date and the social security number and the name of the girlfriend and whatever. Of course, nobody will convert. And if you just have the name and the email, it might be too low of a quality. So you have to be really careful about how you balance this, because in the end, it's like a throttle. Like you can accelerate quickly, get a lot of more leads if you just remove certain fields, but you can also increase the lead quality a lot if you add certain fields. Like for example, adding the zip code if it's a local service, because some people maybe don't want to enter it, but the people that are like really committed to using your service, they might not have a problem with entering it. And then clearly state the main benefits of your offer. It sounds too simple, too stupid, but it's still the case. You have to state the main benefits of your offer. And I want to highlight benefits here, because it's not like the feature, like something, okay, hey, you can advertise on Google, you can create campaigns. This, like, it's a feature, of course, but the benefit is you can attract new clients, and like you can scale your business. You can reach people in other countries or in other regions, whatever, something like that. You can measure it really well. These are the benefits, basically. So try to think about the benefits and state them on your landing page, and then use external trust signals. That could be logos of media outlets or well-known partners. So we use this a lot. So basically, well-known from, and then some German media outlets where the client appeared, and also use reviews and social proof. Like, I always say, let happy clients do the selling for you. So if you look for example, also on landing pages of PPC Mastery, you always see a lot of us saying, hey, this is a great product, and this helped me a lot around this and that. And basically, we do the selling for Miles and Bob in this particular case, because they can just use what we like a lot, and it gives the product a completely different sense of trust, of proof. And it's the same here. So when we start with lead gen clients, we always make sure that they collect reviews in any way. If it's Google Maps, like reviews on Google Maps, whatever, I don't care. But you need some place where a client can basically give you the option to use the testimonial for your advertising. So then, let's get to the finish line. Even at 430K monthly ad spend, we kept looking for the next competitive edge. I want to make a little point before we go into this here, because I think in freelance business and also in agency business, there are always waves. Like if you start with the client, you're really motivated, you want to push, then you do maybe the first test, and then maybe it's not the case for you, but like it cools down a little bit, and it's a little bit like, yeah, we do some optimization, blah blah blah. And I just want to encourage you to always have some sort of testing roadmap, to always have something that is the next thing. Because just imagine a client, if you say, okay, yeah, I don't know what we can do now, let's just let the campaigns run. what would be the reason to still have you on the payroll, although it's a freelance or an agency payroll? So always try to challenge yourself. What would I do? What would an other agency or other freelancer maybe find in the account? What would they maybe challenge? What could be a cool experiment? How can we still drive it? And this was just the sense in which we even at 430K, so we could have said, okay, nice, we started at 20 something. We are now almost 20x. It's great. Let's not touch anything. Let's just let it run and just hide, take the money and go. Yeah, exactly. Or as Volkan says in the chat, it's a completely valid point. Pay someone else to give you a fresh idea, to challenge yourself. Like, it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but it just helps you to constantly develop. And the biggest problem you could have is to stand still. Because if you feel like, I know it all, then you are actually one step away from losing it. And it's really important to just keep this in mind. And for us, this competitive edge was what now hopefully everyone knows as the local search strategy. And we came up with the local search strategy for this client. It was the first one. The case I presented in the first edition of the Floor is Yours was for another client. But what was really, really cool here is, even at that level of spend, we were actually able to first bring the CPL down significantly. I was always talking about CPL increased, but then we had the deal value. But in this particular case, we brought the CPL down at 9%. And if you think about, okay, what could this local search strategy be? Actually, it's creating hyper relevancy across all three layers that we had. So basically what we did is we inserted all keywords of the client service. So let's say, for example, for the sake of this example, let's say Google Ads Agency, that's your service. And then you have the city, Google Ads Agency, New York, Google Ads Agency, San Francisco, etc., etc. And we basically took more than 2,000 German cities because we noticed that a lot of people search for service plus city. We imported all of those keywords as exact match keywords into Google Ads. Why? Because we wanted to have this exact city that somebody's searching for in the ads with the keyword placeholder. So we don't want to rely on the location placeholder by Google, because sometimes like somebody searches maybe for Google Ads Agency San Francisco, but they're actually in San Diego, and then Google inserts San Diego, and you're losing it on this particular part here. So we use keyword placeholder for the dynamic insertion. And the actual killer was that we used the final URL extension on the keyword level to pass on the exact city name to the landing page and show it in the headline. And this basically was the best move that we did at that level, and it's still like brought such a high impact. If you want to dive into the complete like essence of it, here's the video recommendation of the recording from the PPC Hub keynote I did. You can also find it in the PPC Hub somewhere. But basically, we didn't only decrease the CPL by 9%. We also, again, increased the conversion rate from lead to qualified lead by 5% points. And we increased the ROAS, even though at that level, where it was like 100K ad spend in those ad groups, by 16%. So we actually spent less, got 10K more revenue, significantly higher ROAS, and all of that just based on this really simple finding that a lot of people are searching in this particular manner, service plus city, and then pulling it off with, I think it's a simple, stupid idea, but having this exact theme in the ads, so somebody feels like, hey, yes, this is me. I searched for Google Ads Agency San Diego, cool. And then they click on it, and then, hey, still Google Ads Agency San Diego, cool. This is exactly what I need. And this also is exactly as Volkan says in the chat. This is a testament to checking the search term report, still analyzing, not letting Google do everything and running everything, because the other ad group that we were competing against was, of course, an ad group that used broad match and had a lot of data. And it's just, of course, the ad group also covered this theme already, but we just made it better. We just served the theme better and served the demand better. So, and now actually the local ad group is by far the most important one based on deal value on ROAS. So this, for example, is a more fresh screenshot from March 2024. And in the lower line, you can see, and I let this open here, the local ad group. And you can see that it is by far, compared to the other ad group, this is like the most important campaign. It has like almost 50% more deal value and 84% higher ROAS. You might say, hey, why do you still keep this ad group here? Because the client is hungry for scale. And also, since the deals take quite a while, there's still maybe something coming in for March, although we have the 90-day limit. But this is like, this was really, really great. And after that, we added PMAX still. And this also proved to be like a cool point at this journey, where we were able. It's actually the better display campaign in that sense. Although display, as we might all know in the Mike wrote scripts, does not mean display, but means basically the visual assets. So it can also be the demand gen and placements, etc. But it also drove a lot of conversions besides search and added more depth to the search. So really, really like long tail searches that maybe the PMAX took priority against search, but we are not like too heavy on that. We can live with that as long as it gives us a certain scale here. And here also shout out to Miles definitely for the great pro tips around PMAX, because actually this helps a lot, like having a certain guidance around audience signals. You know, I also don't know just everything by mind, and I always I think really great people also know. It's a little bit of a I'm praising myself here, but so you should always know also when to ask someone else, because this just gives you an advantage to challenge yourself, to move one step further, and also to profit from the knowledge of others. And then you can also give back, as I do, for example, with this session. But yeah, also shout out to Miles for the great pro tips around PMAX, which enabled us to also pull this up. Really, really cool. And now we're spending, I think, north of 50K a month on PMAX, so working well. And yeah, this basically concludes the journey. I tried to highlight a few key points. I think I hope I don't stressed out the time too much, but basically how we moved from around 20K-ish to more than 500,000 a month, while always having a look at scaling the leads, scaling the lead quality, leveraging a lot of the advanced techniques that are there, from offline conversion tracking to broad match to experiments, to landing pages, to sales psychology, to whatever, I don't know. I hope you liked it. And if you like, let's dive into your questions.
Very nice, man. Very nice. So thanks for that. That was a great presentation. Also, you notice that you're great at presenting as well. So that's cool. Do you have some extra time, because we were supposed to end now? Okay,
yes,
cool.
100%.
Let's run over with some questions. I'm sure that Bob would like to ask some stuff as well, since he's much more into lead gen than I am. But I have one question to start with, and I know that you can't say too much about the client, so please don't.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, what is the primary lead that clients come in with? Because it seems like this client has a really good initial offer. What does that look like, without going too much into detail what the product or what the business is, but just looking at the offer that they have?
Yeah. They help homeowners do a certain thing in their homes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So then but then
I'm now imagining that being on the landing page as like the above the fold headline, you know.
Yeah. So let's say it like this. So if you have a home, you might have some trouble with the home. And then at some point in time, you might need a help with that.
Yeah.
And like I think what's like the key point here is, like I can't go too much into detail, but let's say like this, we have to think about how to bring down our carbon emissions, and homes with heating and all of that also contribute to that. And people have to think about how to bring down the carbon emissions of their home.
Yeah. And so then they fill out a form, or and
Yes,
then
exactly.
the client contacts them, or what is that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is maybe for another session, but they have mastered the sales process, because sometimes when I did, for example, conversion tracking tests, and I entered my actual phone details,
Yeah.
I pressed the submit button. 20 seconds later, my phone was ringing with a salesperson or like a consultant. And they just, because they brought their time to contact, and everybody in lead gen, if you're doing high scale lead gen, I can really recommend, if your client has not a good sales process, just try to focus them on bringing the time to contact down as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because 10 minutes later, somebody might talk to their grandma or whatever about something else. And if you call them then, they might say, no, let's do it next week. But in the very moment they've just entered the form, they are with their whole focus on that topic. And I know it seems like it's too much, but on this particular scale, it proved to be one of the key points after we generated the lead.
Yeah, that's 100%, man. Actually, I heard Alex Ramosi talk about that recently as well, as one of the primary conversion drivers from the sales process. So very solid, man.
Yeah, I also know someone from like a big German startup. He's working like in Salesforce administration, and he was able to look into a lot of sales teams at also really well-going companies. And he just basically said most of the sales processes are unfortunately shit, because they don't master the number one rule, being in contact with the client as quickly as possible. And it's again, it's like this simple stupid thing, but if you focus on this on this one KPI, and also in a noisy world, like always the question of what to focus on, which KPI to actually improve, this is something that definitely matters a lot.
Yep. And it just goes to show how much you need to develop yourself on that business side, because otherwise you're just gonna obsess over quality score, maybe, something that is unrelated to the growth at such a scale. Whereas if you can help your clients, and if you see that their time to contact ratio is low, is too high, for example, you can challenge them on that. So really solid. Okay,
maybe,
cool. So yeah, go ahead.
Miles, I just want to add one point, because I felt like also like the guys and girls in our agency, sometimes it's hard. How can you say to a client, you're messing it up? And it's not easy, you know, because it's their business, blah, blah, blah. And I just do a trick. What I do is basically always, if I feel like there's something wrong, I ask questions. I say, hey, what's your time to contact, blah, 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 you're tracking it. Yeah, it's 30 minutes, or maybe it's 2 hours. And then I just say, hey, I don't want to like go too much into that because it's your business. But what we see from other clients working really well is if you bring it down to something like with 10 minutes, it brings really solid results. And I know, it's a little bit of a trick, but it just gives me another credibility. And when I really strongly believe into that, I don't want the client just like to go into the defense mode, because they feel, but it's my sales team and I like them and blah, blah, blah. Maybe it helps.
Yeah, very good, man. Very good. That's high level consulting. David says it's called upwards management. So I didn't know there was a term for that, but Very nice. So, Bob, you have some questions you want to ask?
Yeah, I have too many. I have like 10 questions.
Filter them out.
We can do a separate session.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need a separate session. First of all, Niklas, great presentation and amazing case study. Really, really amazing to see these kinds of results, and also the growth that you were able to get for this client, but also for yourself and your team, because I think you have been implementing a lot of advanced stuff that a lot of people and fellow specialists can really, really learn from. And by seeing how little advanced features like OCT can drive such a big growth is really inspiring. So props to you. So I have a couple of questions. I think we can go through all of them. I'm just curious to, mainly curious to the way how you contact your client and how to get your client to spend more. And how you communicate the results so your clients are also seeing the results you're getting and the potential there is still.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in the beginning, somewhere in the beginning, you doubled the budget from a certain point. How did you convince your client to spend more from that point? Was it before or after you implemented OCT? And if you implemented OCT and you had the insights, how did you present it?
So basically, the structural elements of our communications are a bi-weekly synchronous meeting that we do, a Slack channel to be like in contact asynchronously, also for quick communication, Looker Studio dashboard, which turned out to be quite sophisticated now, but basically just real-time overview of the data that we can look into together. Spending more was actually looking at things like impression share, looking at things like Google budget increase recommendations, also saying like it was actually before OCT, because they were already saying, hey, we have a lot of leads coming in and we want to, so they wanted to also grow. It was also their wish. But they wanted to be sure that they grow with a solid foundation, with a good partner, because they don't want to mess it up. They said, hey, we have one chance, like going on this journey. And if we do it ourselves and we might go into the wrong direction 6 months, then we just lose a lot of time. This was one aspect. But basically what we said is pretty simple. So, hey, look, we have this campaign and we were spending X in the last 30 days. We got so many leads. The CPL is looking quite good. And Google tells us that the impression share is just at XYZ%. And we could increase the budget by 5x. We should always carefully look at this budget recommendation by Google. But let's at least say like this, here's a lot of potential still in the market. And it could be a good chance for us to capture it. So something like that, like quite simple. And then when OCT came in, of course, we were able to say, hey, look, we have a lot more deal value here in this campaign. The leads are a little bit more expensive, but how do you feel about the lead quality? Do you also feel like that those leads are worth more for you? Yes, exactly. Yeah, they're worth more for us. Okay, then let's maybe consider spending more on that and shifting the budgets. If you don't want to shift the budgets because you also want to like keep those other themes or those other keywords active at the same scale, we could also increase the budget by XYZ% because Google gives us a recommendation of doubling it, and we might be better off just increasing it by 50% at first or scaling it like from week to week a little bit, 10%, 20%, etc. So this was basically how we approached it.
Cool. So I think a lot of people are struggling with lead management, also at client side. So I'm really curious about the qualified lead part of the whole lead funnel. So how are the qualified leads being determined? How's the client doing that part? Do we have some more information about that so others can maybe learn from that?
Of course. So basically, the journey always goes like this with maybe a few exemptions. Lead form is filled client gets contacted via phone in basically most of the instances. Then on the phone, they get a little bit of a consulting. Hey, blah, blah, blah. You requested the service. Might I ask a few questions, verify your personal details, blah, blah, blah. And then also like they go into some aspects of the service itself. And they do sometimes already sell the service on the phone because like they already convinced the people of that it makes sense for them, and this is how it would work. So it's a good sales team actually, but they are also rather mastering the basics than doing some crazy stuff. And the qualified lead is actually an offer was sent, like how we would send an offer of our agency services, for example. And when this offer is signed, I don't know actually what they're using, maybe DocuSign or some online signing tool. Then the deal is closed, and then we get the deal event pushed. But if it doesn't happen within the first phone call, then it might be the phone call. They get the offer sent. A few days later, they sign the offer, and then they use Salesforce in their particular example as a CRM. A webhook event is sent to Zapier, and we then process the
offline conversion.
The offline conversion, thanks. The offline conversion, and the same for deal, webhook called, and then process the same. Yeah.
Interesting. Sometimes it can be so really simple. Like when is your lead qualified? Well, when an offer is being sent.
Yeah, for this also, when we have new clients, I always say to them, hey, look, the qualified lead, what is the idea about it? It just has to differentiate every lead from a lead where you say it has some sense of quality. It could be that you have a good first call where you just feel like this could be a customer. Could be a customer. Or he requested an offer or whatever, downloaded some other stuff that just people download that are really interested in the service. And I feel like people stress out way too much about it. I mean, you can change the definition also later on. Just have something where you feel like, yes, when I put 100 people in at the top, like 50 maybe remain as a qualified lead, something like that. And then from those, I don't know, 10, 20 remain as a deal. Then you have like a solid definition of the different stages.
Yeah, good points. So with regards bidding strategies, so I think you have been running a target CPA within the account, steering towards a cost per qualified lead. Have you been experimenting with value-based bidding in any sense?
Yes, exactly. We were actually optimizing towards deals very, very early on in one of the the major campaign, and also using target ROAS. The problem for us turned out to be that the campaign felt less responsive towards changes in the bidding. So we made a change, for example, of 50%, like from target ROAS 350 to 300. But basically, we felt like how much is our impact on the amount of leads and on the amount of qualified leads and then on the amount of deals. And we felt like that we have like a more agile control center, so to say, if we work with optimizing for website leads, then TCPA, and then also qualified leads and then TCPA. It's hard for us. We didn't like check it back then in any more scientific way. We felt like that it doesn't serve us right. That's why we moved over to the actual leads with TCPA. And for value-based bidding in terms of like lead scoring and something like that. So we felt like we want to have a clear guidance per stage. So for example, when we optimize towards a website lead, we want to be able to say, actually, I want to have a lead as much as possible for 100 euros. Or qualified leads, we want to have as much as possible for 600 euros or whatever. And we felt like that for us, it was hard to comprehend how would we actually determine, for example, a T-ROAS if we use all like website lead, qualified lead, and deals with the different values. Maybe a lead is a tenth of the average deal value or something like that. And yeah, we were thinking about it, but actually it turned out to be a little bit. We didn't find like this idea of, oh yeah, this is how it will make sense, because of course higher value, Google steers more towards the conversions with higher value.
For qualified leads, if you're sending over qualified leads as an offline conversion based on whether or not an offer has been sent, then in fact you know the potential deal value of the qualified lead. So you could in fact use the offer quotation value as an offline conversion value, I think. But I totally understand your way of thinking, because sometimes it gets really overly complicated if you try to steer away from a really simple to understand concept like target CPA towards like a target ROAS based setting. But it could work. It could work. You could maybe use the quotation deal value to let the algo steer more towards higher potential deal values. Maybe something that could work.
Maybe something for the journey to 1 million.
Yes, yes. Maybe the next one. Maybe you have an excellent case in about 3 months.
Yeah.
No, but I was just curious if you have tried it.
Yeah.
And for ad testing, you showed a really interesting table where you tested the URL, if I'm correct. And I think you tested it as like an extra RSA within the same ad group or ad groups, right? Did you do that on purpose, out of curiosity, instead of doing it through a very controlled ad variation?
I'm not quite sure what our reasoning was. I think we just wanted to let it run alongside. I'm not sure if we turned off the auto rotation, like the optimized auto rotation of the ads in the campaign, and just let it run evenly. So because then we thought like, hey, this is like a real test. But I would have to check back with Marius what the actual like reasoning was behind it.
Yeah, maybe you have a very good reasoning for it. So I'm curious to learn about that perspective. Maybe you also threw in different variables to test with, like headlines and description lines. That would make
we just tested like the
sense.
exact same ad with just the landing page
Only the URL.
Exactly. Okay. With the local search strategy, it was different. Then we added the other ad group with all the different keywords, and then final URL, and then also the ad. Yeah, but the ad was basically the same, just keyword keyword placeholder as I think pinned on the first position, but I'm not sure. I would have to check. But yeah, no, I will talk to Marius and like get back with the information.
Maybe it's got a really, really good, interesting reasoning behind it. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
With regards building landing page yourself, I think that's like such an underestimated thing that we as Google Ads specialists can do. And I know for a fact, based on your cases and all of the things that you've shared with us already, that you're doing this really, really, really well, and also often for a lot of your B2C, B2B lead clients. I've basically got 2 questions. The first one is, what are your biggest tips for landing page creation and also optimization? You already shared some interesting things for landing page creation, but I want to really hear your biggest takeaway, what needs to be in there. And second of all, how do you sell it as an agency or as a freelancer? Do you sell it as an additional service, or do you sell it within the hours that you have allocated for the client? So curious to hear.
So I think the biggest takeaway for creating landing pages is really going the extra mile to understand the target audience. Because if you do not understand the audience or the people that will come to this landing page, it won't ever convert. And for me, it goes back to really understanding what matters to them. So what do they actually need? And for example, it can be totally different things. So it can be that your service, for example, protects them from some potentially a bad thing that could happen. So for example, even an agency service, you could position it as, depending on what you think your target audience is, you could position it as protecting their ad spend from getting wasted by the big Silicon Valley money-hungry tech giant Google. It could be.
Yeah.
You could also position it as a growth driver for the business. Like, imagine not having just one shop of your whatever you do, like I don't know, house renovation. Yeah, imagine having 10 shops. Google Ads can help you do that, like transform your business. And this, like, it's always flip a coin. You could do it like that. You could do it like that. In the end, it's a matter of what is the target group actually searching for, and like going into knowing your client about what is it that the people that buy from you actually need. And we ask a lot of questions about it. We say, what's the reason they're buying from you, specifically from you? Like, why not from others? A lot of reasons pop up. Those are all reasons that could go into the landing page copy. Then also, why are they not buying from you? Like, what made them hesitate, or what made them go to the competitor? This is the pricing. If you can't change the price, then why is your price at that level? Is your service superior? What are you doing that others aren't? And why is it important? Like, all this comes down to offer creation and also offer positioning. And I know it's complicated and we can't cover all of that. But a good landing page always positions your service as the ideal solution to the pain points or to the problems your ideal customer has. And target group understanding, I think, is key to that. And what was your second question again?
Thank you for the first for answering the first part. It was a long question. The second part is, how do you include it within your monthly fees? Because setting it up is well, one thing, but maintaining the landing pages, optimizing them, and building them out for, well, several ad group themes, keyword themes, long tails is a second thing. So really curious how you include it within your pricing.
Yeah. So we have it included in our package, and the package is always like a fixed price based on certain ad spend levels. So we don't have hours or whatever. We basically sell a result. So we help you grow your business with Google Ads. And if when we approach different ad spend levels, for us, maintenance effort increases. We look into the account more often. So, for example, account like that I just presented, we look into that multiple times a day. If you have an account that's running at 5K a month, of course, you might also have times when you look into it more often, but sometimes
less often.
Yeah, you just look at it maybe once a week. Maybe if things go right, just twice per month or something like that. This is it, and we include it because we always say, like, how do we differentiate from other agencies? At least in Germany, there are a lot of agencies still. I don't want to do this a blame game, but they have not a lot of expertise in conversion tracking, and they don't have expertise in landing pages. And we always say, hey, look, if you just look at the account, you're missing one of the important factors, being the data input, and you're also missing where do the people go. And of course, your website could be good, but what we see is that most often a website with all sort of options, also pages for partners and blah, 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 and blog and this and that, it's just overwhelming. And mostly it's better to focus than like to have this giant page with all sort of pages. So this is also how we position, like, the landing page being necessary. And then also, of course, with the cases where we can say, this is how a landing page helped increase X, Y, Z conversion rate, etc. And we keep it like in the pricing. We made the prices a little bit higher, like for the whole service. So let's say maybe if you spend 25K until 50K with us, we charge 3K a month flat. And in the first month, if we have a lot of stuff going on with offline conversion tracking and landing pages, it's maybe on the calculated on the hour, it's not so great. But like a lot of effort is actually in the beginning, and then it's in waves. Although we always, of course, push initiatives and have new ideas, but the biggest blocks that you have to push are in the beginning or then in certain phases. And of course, optimizing landing pages, etc., is a lot of work, but still, like the initial heavy lifting is significantly more than afterwards. And we just calculate with the client that we can enable to work with us like a year, 2 years, 3 years, and more. And in that sense, the customer lifetime value for us is significantly more important than the initial, like, okay, do we
return on investment or return on effort?
Exactly. Because in the end, if it works, for example, like a client like this, if we wouldn't have cared about offline conversion tracking and some, I don't know, they would have hired someone from Fiverr, or I don't know, so I don't want to put that in a bad light, but I hear this so often where agencies then outsource this to Fiverr, those important things, and it just doesn't work. And if we cannot risk it, because in the end, like, it just for us it's far more important to work with the client 1.5 years, 2 years, and we also make a lot more money if they stay with us long term than just maxing out, let's say, the first 3 months or 6 months, and then they say, hey, yeah, it's okay, but it's not so great, and blah blah blah, and then but you need to buy our landing pages and whatever. But in the end, like, I always say, if I think it's a necessity to do it, like to optimize the conversion tracking, to optimize the landing page, I can't make it an optional offer. Like, I can't make it an add-on, because then it's like I contradict my own argument.
It's a foundational thing that you need to set up, essentially, next to restructuring accounts.
If you think a house needs a roof, you can't sell houses without roofs and make the roof an upsell for 10K, and then you complain about the client. But you didn't buy the roof. But it's really cold in here. Yeah, you have to buy the roof, man. It sounds stupid, but it's like, for me,
happens a lot in the Netherlands, though, where people sell Costco houses. So you still have to buy your own kitchen and your own flooring and whatnot. You basically get an empty house. So, but I get the argument. It's a nice one. Nice analogy. So I have 4 more questions, but we're running out of time. So I want to end it here.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for the extensive answers. Really learned a couple of things. And really nice to hear your personal insights here and there. Do you have anything left to say, Niklas, before we round it off?
Just thanks for the opportunity to showcase this, and thanks to all the questions, and thanks to the really great exchange. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully this is not my last appearance in the floor is yours, but still, I want to encourage everybody, although not so many left live, do a session. Like, don't stress out too much about it, because it's really worth it. It's really cool to just show things you worked on. It doesn't have to be this shiny big case. I think it's really worth also to just present in front of a few strangers. Like, let's say it feels friendly, but a lot of people around the world. I just want to encourage everybody to do it.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Very awesome. Very awesome. We saw that with the floor is yours from Violetta. I asked her if she wanted to present something, and she presented a case where she helped a client go from 0 to like 15K in revenue or so. So she thought that, it's not big, it's not special, it's not advanced, but actually for this client, it was groundbreaking and super helpful. And she just did Google Ads combined with some LinkedIn retargeting, meta retargeting, and then it doesn't matter what you do. If the client is happy, then it's a good case study, and we can all learn from that with different levels. So thanks a lot for saying.
And it also makes you proud. It also makes you proud of your own work, right?
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to spend 553K per month in order for it to be successful, because it depends on the goals of the client. But with that said, I really enjoyed it again, yeah, feel free anytime if you have anything else to present. If you feel like you want to practice a presentation again or give some extra insights, feel free to let us know, because you can always take the stage. At the end of the month, we're going to have a whole workshop by Volkan about the more so on the sales side of things with Q&A. So that's going to be cool as well. But to anybody else as well, if you're here live or if you are watching the recordings, just send us a message if you want to.
I'm not going to present after Nicholas now. Forget it. The bar is still on.
Come on.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Nicholas. I know I'm better than you.
Wow.
Boom.
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
It's on. It's on.
I love you, man. I love you.
With that,
fun.
guys, yeah, all jokes are fun. We'll see you. I'm going to stop the recording now and see you guys in the PPC Hub for sure.